Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It is nice to have you here. I am Sydney and this is Storytime with Sid, and today I'm going to be talking about my May and a little tiny bit of April wrap up. So let's just get into it. Don't mind me while I look at Goodreads to figure out what I read. Okay. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is actually a graphic novel, and it is called The Tea Dragon Society, and I'm just going to pull it out because you all truly deserve to see this. Stunning. But like, okay, come on. If you don't know, the Tea Dragon Society follows, God, I don't even remember her name. Greta. If you don't know, the Tea Dragon Society follows Greta, and I think her name is Minya, I think is how you say it. And Greta forges weapons like for her community, and she ends up helping someone with their lost tea dragon, and she becomes like a dual. She brews tea and she forges iron weapons, and she meets Minya, and she has like a small little backstory, but these tea dragons are like the most beautiful things I've ever seen. As a tea drinker, it's just like so cute to see. They use the little leaves that they grow on their bodies. They remove them and then they brew them, and when you brew these leaves that come straight from the dragon, you can see the memories that they had of the person that the tea dragon was with. So the story is just very sweet. Literally just stunning. Like I sat in the sun one day and I just like really reminisced and like poured over every page like once or twice to just like look at how cute they are, and like the clothing that they all wear is just like so cute, and I just can't. This whole series is just freaking adorable. I mean, if you're into graphic novels at all, I highly recommend, but if you're not, I highly recommend. They actually also make little plushies of the tea dragons. I want them all. It's like $100. I want them all. I also totally love to collect pins, and they have pin sets. So you already know that I'm going to be buying every pin set because these little bundles of joy are just the cutest thing. So again, this is something that I read way back in April, but I thought I'd talk about it because I haven't talked about it since. So the next book that I read was called The Parable of the Sower. I believe it's actually technically talked about as like a modern classic. I'll have to like double check on that, but I'm pretty sure it's in the realm of modern classics. This is going to be a hard pass for me. I listened to this book, and actually Elliot Brooks, on her channel, I'll link it below, but on her channel she read this and she was like, I loved it so much, like one of my favorite classics, and so I picked it up, and it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. You're following, oh god, now I don't even remember her name, but you're following someone and she is basically living in this like kind of almost dystopian type world where the cost of living has gotten astronomical, and everyone is kind of living in these different little communities, and every community is responsible for themselves and responsible for like protecting themselves and their neighbors. So it's kind of like a kill or be killed world outside of their little community walls. Her father is a pastor, and she has a couple brothers, and I believe it's like a stepmom. And one thing leads to another, and the story kicks off by her community getting burnt to the ground, basically. And she, basically the premise is that she kind of like starts to write about like her experiences and how they've affected her, and she basically creates an entire religion out of her experiences. And while that's really interesting, it wasn't for me. And it might be for you. I think there was lots of like really, really profound quotes and things that were beautifully written, but just not enough for me. And like it was just kind of like a meandering, like nothing, like it was just kind of a bleak world. And like while I love The Witcher for like its bleak world, this was just a very different kind, and it just like nothing really happened. I was explaining the plot line to my boyfriend, and I was like, this happened, and this happened. And he was like, oh, that's where the book ends? I was like, yeah, that's where the book ends. So, again, if that sounds like intriguing to you, there's a lot of like philosophy, a lot of talk about change and how like you need to accept change. So again, very, very interesting. Shockingly similar to our current state of affairs right now, but just really not a book that like resonated with me. I'm getting glad I listened to it and didn't like buy the book. The next book that I'm going to talk about that I finished on May 1st was Heartstopper. I did a lot of like very different reading this month. I believe the last book I read in April was The Way of Kings, and Brandon Sanderson always has this great, fantastic way of throwing me into the worst reading slump of my life. So I figured like picking up some graphic novels and other things that like different mediums to help me get out of that slump would definitely help. So I picked this up, and this is by Alice Oseman. Elise Oseman. We'll go with that. If you don't know, this book follows Charlie and Nick. Charlie is openly gay, and he's just kind of going through high school, just about his normal life, and he gets sat next to Nick in class one day, and Nick ends up just being a really, really amazing friend to him, gets him to go out for some sports, and they just end up becoming really, really, really good friends. And it's just their kind of story of being friends and potentially, maybe, wink wink, falling in love. And I'm also really excited. I haven't watched the show, but this just came out on Netflix, and I've heard literally just like amazing, wonderful things about it. It's already been renewed for the next season. I can't imagine that it will ever stop. And I am super glad that I read this. Also, like, I want all of their clothing because it's just adorable. And I don't know, this could be totally false, but I'm pretty sure that each book has its own color, so it's like two-toned, but each book has its own, or each volume, I guess I should say, has its own color. So like I think the next one's pink, and then the purple, and then so on and so forth. But it's really cute, and I took my time. I think I read it over like 3 days, and I just like really sat and just like loved these characters, and it was just, I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. And again, I can't wait to watch the Netflix series for this. The next book that I read in May was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I listened to this book. I didn't read it physically. Obviously, it is like a massive classic. I think everyone knows what this book is, but I don't know very many people that know what the book's actually about. And after listening to it, I don't know if I could tell you. It follows two characters, and they're just kind of like adventure through space, and it's very, very comedic and just very like meandering. There's no real consequences, just very like lighthearted, kind of like poking fun at so many things that we know and like roll our eyes at. I thought the opening to the book was incredibly strong. I was so drawn in from the opening. He starts off on Earth, and then you're kind of following this basically alien character, and he's like, hey dude, the end of the world, why don't you come get a drink with me? And nobody believes him. So it was just a very, very strong opening, but the book kind of lost me after that. The next book that I read in May was the first book in the Murderbot Diaries, which I believe is called It's called All Systems Red, and this follows a murderbot who sole purpose is basically hired security, and his job is to protect his humans. But these humans don't know that he has a hacked governor module, which just means that he can make his own decisions. Wow. Decisions. Oh my goodness. That he can make his own choices. We'll go with that one. That was an easier word to say. And they're all novellas, so they're incredibly short. Each audiobook is only like 3 hours, so flew through them in like 2 days. Currently listening to the second one, and it's just kind of like a murderbot story. It's almost like a video game type feel. It gives me like Mass Effect vibes, which is like you just land on a random planet and there's like a quest type story. And I love those kind of stories. Like I said, it just gives me like huge video game vibes. The fight scenes are kind of fun. The characters like aren't super deep, or like you don't really know them very well. Like there's no like huge character development and like love for any of these characters. And Murderbot is extremely snarky and rude, and he just wants to be left alone and not have to kill anybody. So there you go. That's the Murderbot Diaries summed up. I have no idea if the rest of the series continues to follow the same Murderbot or if it's a different Murderbot, but as of story 2, it is the same Murderbot. So get another book on your Goodreads goal. Short, easy, you should do it. Oh boy. The next book, Hunger of the Gods. I think a lot of you are going to be surprised about this one. I didn't love it. It's really sad, actually. I really didn't love it. The first book, The Shadow of the Gods, was one of my favorite reads last year, and this was like my most anticipated read of the entire year, and sadly I didn't love it. And in this one, I just don't want to give anything away because I know that this is so highly anticipated for so many people, so it's really hard for me to talk about because I just don't want to say too much. But I unfortunately, even if I wanted to like give stuff away, I couldn't, because nothing happens in like 700 pages. And I'm not being harsh on this. I think it's incredibly dangerous for John Gwynne to ask us to read 600 pages of nothing happening. Everything happens in the last literal, like, probably 10 pages. And I'm not exaggerating. It picks up exactly where the first one left off, and you're just kind of meandering, literally for 600 frickin' pages. This is hard for me to talk about because I'm just pretty disappointed, I guess. The writing is still wonderful. I don't dock it for that. The writing and like the atmosphere, super, super well done. Felt like I was in like a Viking environment the whole time. Again, the fight scenes are really, really well written as well, but just not enough happened. And when it finally did at the end, one character, well, actually that's not even true. All three characters, I predicted exactly what was going to happen to all of them. So none of it was surprising. I like so much about the first one is that I was kind of surprised. I was kind of shocked at like the brutality of the world and like, whoa, like people died or this happened and I totally didn't expect it. This had none of that. This had like no Game of Thrones moments where I was like, oh my god. I even like had one of these sticky notes somewhere in here. Totally predicted exactly who like someone was and who their god was. So it's just like, I don't know. I just, unfortunately, this was just a super, super bad miss for me. It took me a very, very long time to get through this, like weeks to get through this. I put it down to read Heartstopper. I put it down to read or listen to The Hitchhiker's Guide. I even debated about like just stopping halfway through and like picking up a completely different book. It was so much to ask from me as a reader for nothing to happen. Especially when the first one, like way, way shorter. Well, not way shorter, probably like at least 100 pages shorter, but way shorter and like 3 times the amount of things happened. And the characters just like didn't develop. Like they didn't change. They didn't do anything different, like nothing that you wouldn't expect them to do. I don't know, they just continued on their little journey. So, I don't know. I still highly recommend reading the first one and picking up this one because I think the third one's going to be wonderful. I'm still going to read the third one, even with this one not being my favorite. So maybe I should just be less excited about releases. Maybe I was just like too excited and then it was just like, what is this? So yeah, I think this will shock most people because I was really, really excited about this. Please comment down below if you had similar feelings or are having similar feelings reading this. There's a couple tabs in here, but it's mainly just like keeping track of like the mythology of the world and the lore of the world because it's been over a year since the first one came out, so just kind of had forgotten some of those things. But yeah. And the second to last book that I read in May is The Picture of Dorian Gray. I'm not going to say too much because I have an entire video on Dorian Gray. I will link it up here. Very, very like gothic era classic. We did a group read with MJ from Reading This Life. If you haven't seen her channel or her videos, please check her out. She's a wonderful human being. I love being in her Discord server. Dorian Gray just follows 3 characters, Dorian, Basil, and Lord Henry, and there isn't much of a plot besides the fact that Basil ends up painting a portrait of Dorian Gray, and Dorian kind of makes a deal with the devil, and the portrait ends up taking on all the transgressions of his life. So all of his sins, all of his bad deeds, everything the portrait takes on instead of Dorian. So Dorian gets to stay this like beautiful, handsome, young 20-something-year-old. I mean, who doesn't want that? But he also becomes like super, super terrible human being. And again, that's pretty much all I'll say about it because I have the whole video dedicated to it and you should go watch it. And the last book that I have read / am reading is, what's it called? Valor. I was gonna say Malice. Valor, and it is the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne, and I have to say that I think I read Malice in like February, maybe even January. It was okay, like it was definitely, I had just read The Shadow of the Gods and then went to Malice and the difference between writing was very, very apparent. It was very clear that this was his first book, but I still thought that the world building and like the characters were really intriguing. I thought it was kind of long for what it was. you're just following like a multitude of characters, different points of view. And actually I do have to say that what he did really well was I didn't feel like I liked anybody more than I liked another person, which he also does really, really well in The Shadow of the Gods and The Hunger of the Gods. You don't really feel like you have a favorite character. It's like they are all on equal playing fields, which I personally struggle with, like really, really badly in multiple point of view stories. I'm like, get me to the next person that I like. So I think his writing in that shines immensely. Anyway, you're following a multitude of characters. There are giants in this land, and the giants are kind of like trying to take back their land, and that's kind of all I'll say. There's like kind of some mythology. There is basically what I would call like the devil and the god, and these are kind of like forces that are vying for power in this land. But now that I am reading like over halfway through Valor, 100% worth it. 100% worth it. I know that I forgot, a few things, but God, it was so worth the longer introduction to the world, because now in Valor, like, everything is happening. Like, things are just breakneck speed, I feel like. And I also am just like really nervous for a lot of my main characters. Like, I'm like, oh my god, like they're killing off side people left and right. Like, they just don't care. And so it makes me really worried about like main characters. And I do have to say that I am like loving Valor. Way more than I expected to. Especially because I came to it right after I came to Hunger of the Gods, read that one and then picked up Valor, and I'm like, I am loving Valor like 4 times the amount that I am liking, or that I liked Hunger of the Gods. Hunger of the Gods like let me down so bad, and then Valor like came out of nowhere and is just like shocking me. Definitely very, very similar like writing to his newer books. So the writing from Malice to Valor improved immensely, and I can only imagine that it literally continues to get closer and closer to the level that he's at now. So I have to commend him for that, because there's a lot more like depth to the dialogue and even to the characters themselves. There's just like a bit more like growth behind them, and you're kind of getting to like see a little bit of their thoughts. Which you didn't see as much in Malice. But okay, that is all I read for May and a little bit of April. So I hope you enjoyed the books. Please let me know if you read any of the books, especially Hunger of the Gods. Obviously extremely popular right now and very talked about. So please let me know your opinions and thoughts, or if you've read any of these books and agree or disagree with me on any of them. I would love to have a conversation with you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!